call the roll, please?
Mr. Rogers?
Here.
Ms. Ramsey?
Here.
Mayor Pons?
Here.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Here.
Ms. Kernshire?
Here.
Okay, we don't have any minutes to approve, so that takes us now to matters of special privilege, and today's another great opportunity for the city to recognize a wonderful employee, and that's Herb Williams. So if you'd join me at the podium, please. Welcome, sir. All right, so today we have Herb Williams. For more than 2 years, Senior Police Officer Herb Williams has faithfully and honorably served the citizens, visitors of the City of Williamsburg as a police department, community engagement, and crime prevention officer. Indicative of his drive to make this community he serves the best it can be, Herb Williams spent a significant portion of last year in efforts to secure the Department of Criminal Justice Service Certificate Crime Prevention Community certification for the City of Williamsburg. Benefits include sending a clear message that criminal behavior will not be tolerated, preference in state criminal justice grant application process. It can be used in a marketing tool to attract family, tourists, conferences, businesses, conference planner, businesses, and other interested in finding a safe location to live and work. Possible premium reductions for insurance companies for policyholders living in the city. Enhancing the professionalism of the city management and police department. The process to achieve this designation is no mere box-checking exercise. It is a 4-part endeavor that requires satisfying 19 elements, 12 core, and 7 optional to prove that the community has implemented a defined set of safety strategies as part of a comprehensive community safety crime prevention effort. These elements are not standalone police functions. Many require additional certifications, as well as membership in various multidisciplinary teams in collaboration with other city departments, public schools, colleges, university, non-governmental organizations, elected officials, and private citizens. Herb's personal initiative, leadership, and dedication to teamwork produced an application package that resulted in the Criminal Justice Service Board awarding the City of Williamsburg the designation of Certified Crime Prevention Community, making Williamsburg one of only 12 other localities in the Commonwealth to hold this certification. Herb Williams is an exemplary city employee and is vital to the success of the City Police Department. He is hereby recognized for his dedication to excellence in keeping with the best interests and traditions of public service in the City of Williamsburg. Not only does he get a plaque, but he gets a certificate and the opportunity to say something to the audience.
I get to say something to the audience.
You do.
Well, first, I'd like to thank Chief for supporting me in this endeavor. It was just a few years ago when I first proposed that this certification be granted to us, or that we work towards this certification. I stood in front of him with an executive brief, and I did not think it was going to go well. But to my surprise, he pulled me to the side and he said, "Hey, this is going to be your thing, and I want you to work towards this until it's done." Okay? And so I also want to thank the rest of the command staff, especially my Major Ashley Nichols, if y'all would give her a hand, and Lieutenant Ben Smith. Because let me tell you, had it not been for them, I would have had a hard time getting this done, because you have no idea how much work it takes just to get people to kind of buy into something as big as this accomplishment. All right, so, and also I'd like for all of y'all to give yourselves a round of applause, because you are all the inspiration for this certification. Okay, I really appreciate you all. History, everyone.
Okay, thank you. It takes us now to public hearings, and the first is consideration and action regarding license agreement between the City of Williamsburg and Bruton Parish Church for the placement of utility pipes, fixtures, and equipment related to geothermal heating system across Palace Street. Ms. Shelton.
Bruton Parish Church has requested a license across Palace Street. Can you advance it? Michelle's going to try to get you the picture up. To connect their proposed geothermal wells on Palace Green to the church next door, which requires running lines under Palace Street. The license is just for the lines under Palace Street, which is public right-of-way. The license proposed is for 20 years with an automatic 20-year renewal. They have to come in and get a right-of-way permit from the Department of Public Works. They are required to put the street back to the condition that it was in before the installation of the lines. The city is only allowed to provide a license for a period of 40 years maximum, which is why this is not for a longer period of time. It's consistent with other licenses the city has granted, and of course, the church is a historic asset in the city. This is to replace their existing heating system with a more modern heating system that will preserve the church and allow it to continue to be a place where the public visits. City Council is required to hold a public hearing on this. Vernon Getty is here representing the church if you have questions for him. If you have technical questions regarding the lines going in the street or the geothermal system, Aaron is able to answer those questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff before we open the public hearing? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing and invite Mr. Getty up as the applicant.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'm Vernon Getty. It's my pleasure and privilege to be here today representing Bruton Parish Church. Also here are our rector, Chris Epperson, John Fogarty, who is the treasurer of the church and is quarterback in the geothermal project, and my fellow trustee of the church and council, Channing Hall. We're very excited about this project. The church has struggled for years and years with an efficient working heating and cooling system. I think this will be great. It's efficient, environmentally friendly. It allows the historic integrity of both the church building and churchyard to be preserved. So we're very excited about it. And we'd be happy to answer any questions you have of us about it. And
Just two quick questions, I think, for me. Is it true that Colonial Williamsburg owns Palace Lawn?
Correct.
But there's an agreement, I get the proper terminology, that maintains that as public space, is that correct?
The facilities you see on that plan are all underground.
Yeah.
And it will preserve the integrity of Palace Green. There are underground wells, and there's one junction box that will have a top to it that's flush with the surface of the ground.
So there won't be any real disturbance of that land long term?
Exactly. Other than the initial installation, you won't know it's there.
Yeah, good, thank you. Any questions for the
Yeah.
applicant?
Mr. Getty, if this were approved today, do you have a timeline of when this would
Work will
take
start
place?
almost immediately.
Okay. And how long do you anticipate the work would take?
How long will the work take, John? 4 weeks.
4 weeks?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just one other question along the line of the mayor. Since this belongs to Colonial Williamsburg, I assume they have approved it as
Yes,
well.
we have a
Is there a
easement.
lease for the wells underneath there, or time period that the church has it, or is that in
We have,
perpetuity?
Yeah, we have a perpetual easement from Colonial Williamsburg.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, outside of the duration, I have no additional questions. 4 weeks seems like a faster timeline than
Yeah.
I would have guessed, so thank you all.
It's been a long time in the works.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Getty.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to come forward to speak to this? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and come back to council for further discussion.
I think it's a great move for the church to preserve a historic building and to provide some updated comfort.
I agree.
Well, I just think it's exciting to use a very modern, environmentally friendly means of heating and cooling in such a historic structure. It's nice to see the two merge together, so fully in agreement with it.
Yeah, very well said, I agree.
Thank you. Somebody like to make a motion?
So I move that City Council approve the license agreement between the City of Williamsburg and Breton Parish Church for the placement of utility pipes, fixtures, and equipment related to a geothermal heating system across Palace Street.
Second?
Okay,
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons? Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
thank you. Next, item B is consideration and action regarding PCR number 22-024 to rezone property located at 115, 135, 259, 275, 301, 331, and 391 Penniman Road, and 220, 221, 271, 273, and 275 Broadway Avenue from the Corridor Business District, B2, to the Limited Business District, LB3, and PCR number 23-019 for a special use permit to construct multifamily apartments and townhomes. Ms. Griffin, before you begin, I do want to, make a statement. Pursuant to Section 2-2-3112 of the Code of Virginia, I'd like to state that I own a piece of property on Penman Road not far from the subject property. It is one of more than 3 parcels on this property, and so notwithstanding that, I'm able to participate in this conversation and make a fair and objective, take a fair and objective position on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Pons and members of the City Council. The city has received a request from Platinum Management LLC to rezone 12 properties, as just listed by the mayor, located at the corner of Penniman Road and Page Street. The request is to rezone the properties from the Corridor Business District, our B2 district, to the LB3, our Limited Business Mixed Use District. The applicant is also requesting a special use permit to build multifamily dwellings. I will combine the two presentations into one, so we'll talk about the rezoning first, and then we'll talk about the special use permit. But before I provide an overview of the project, I think it is important to provide the history of the property and how we've arrived here. The applicant has a purchase agreement with Blue Green Vacations Unlimited, contingent upon the outcome of the rezoning and the special use permit. Recently, we have learned that Blue Green has entered into a merger with Hilton Grand Vacations, and this company builds and manages timeshares. In 2007, the subject properties were a part of a rezoning of actually 75 acres on Parkway Drive from the Colonial Parkway to Penniman Road, and also Penniman Road and 2nd Street. And at the time, these properties were zoned B3, and in 2007, they were zoned to B2. Blue Green Resorts was slated to construct 400 timeshares. These never came to fruition. Any past request for timeshare development has expired, and if timeshares are desired at this location, a new application must be submitted to the city. Hotels and timeshares are allowed by right in the B2 district, which is what the property is zoned currently. This means that the review of a hotel or timeshare proposal will be reviewed through the site plan review process before the Planning Commission, but not subject to review by the City Council. The property is in the AP2 district, and the exterior design, including materials, would be subject to the review of the Architectural Review Board. So hopefully that provides everyone on the same, with the same information, and we can move forward. The applicant is requesting 182 apartments and 50 townhomes, totaling 232 units. The purpose of this rezoning is because in the current B2 zoning district, apartments and townhouses are not allowed. So I'll go over first the proposal. The proposal consists of approximately 9,000 square feet of a parcel located on Penniman Road, and is at the top left-hand corner of the property. You'll see that there is a dedicated park, and also the planned commercial that is striped. Of the 232 residential units, you have 182 multifamily dwellings, all located in buildings 1 and 2 and 3 in the middle of the property there. You also have 50 townhouse units. 12 of the townhouses would be for sale. The other units on the property are for rent. The 12 townhouses for sale are located along Penniman Road. You should know that if the properties, the townhouses, if at the time that a certificate of occupancy is received, if the townhouses have not been sold, they would convert to rental units. There are approximately 58 one-bedroom apartments, 118 two-bedroom apartments, and 6 three-bedroom apartments. All of the townhouses on the property are 3 bedrooms. If the project was approved, it is estimated to begin construction in the first quarter of 2025, with the estimated completion in the fourth quarter of 2026. Included in this development is a clubhouse, a pool, various recreational and landscaped areas. The applicant has gone over and beyond the requirement for open space. The open space requirement is 20%. They've gone over and beyond that. They're also including a dog park and also a public park. This park would actually be owned by the property owner, but there would be a public art component where people outside of the residential area would be able to come and explore the park and see the public art. Also included as a part of this property is a playground. There is an RPA area located at the bottom right-hand screen. Of course, there's no buildings that can go in the resource protection area. And I will note that the 232 units do meet the density requirements of the comprehensive plan and also the zoning ordinance. By right, in the LB3, they would be able to build 235 units based on the density, and they're suggesting 232 units. They're also meeting their tree canopy requirements. They're going over and beyond the tree canopy. Required is 15% of the residential development. At 17.9 acres, they have to do a minimum of 2.68 acres of trees, and they are providing 4.14 acres of tree coverage. Parking. The parking requirements, I saw some letters that came from residents, and it was questioning the parking. The parking requirements here do include visitor parking, and it is calculated as such. And so for one-bedroom apartments, for the 58 one-bedrooms, 87 spaces are required. For the 2 and 3 bedrooms, 217 spaces are required. And for the townhouses, 100 spaces are required. They are providing 429 spaces, and this is over the requirement of 425. During the review process, we worked with the applicant. At one point, they had several parking spaces along the CX railway. We did not think that was appropriate, and we also felt like it was very far to walk for the buildings 1, 2, and 3, and so they did reconfigure the parking. Traffic impact. A traffic impact analysis was completed for this property, and our engineer, Aaron Small, is here, and he can answer any specific questions about the traffic impact analysis. What we did learn was that the turn now on Penniman and Page has warranted some concern. And so the suggestion by our traffic engineer, our Aaron Small, was that there would not be a left-hand turn at Penniman and Page. This was not something that was necessarily endorsed by the applicant, but there was no issue with that. And so if there was no left-hand turn off of Penniman and Page, the idea is that traffic would go to Parkway and Second. And the applicant has proffered to provide a percentage of funding for a signal at Parkway and Page. And Aaron can speak to you more about that, and if you have any additional questions. They have also provided a fiscal impact analysis. They've estimated that 33 students would live in this particular complex. It's an additional cost of around $336,000 for new pupils per year. Overall, the planning department and staff approved the conceptual plan that you see before you here. Important to note also is the zoning, and we'll go into that right now. Again, the current zoning is B2, and this gives you the intent of that particular zoning district. It is commercial and service uses primarily oriented to the automobile, existing and future hotels, restaurants, and other tourism retail uses. And as I've said before, the multifamily uses that they would like to have here is not allowed in the B2. In fact, in the B2 district, no more than 67% of gross floor area can be committed to multifamily uses, and that actually has to be for the redevelopment of a parcel. And right now, as you know, there's nothing there, so it's nothing to redevelop, so that's why they're asking to be LB3. This is located in our Northeast Triangle planning area. This is our edge district. There are diversity of homes here, single-family, detached, condominiums, multifamily, and some commercial uses. In total, this particular area has around 1,348 total dwelling units, the largest concentration of multifamily dwelling units in the city. The comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is a 10-year plan outlined for the city. One of the major things that it does is provide us with a future land use map, and it designates what at the time the residents and the city council approved that could come to the city in the future. Specifically, the comp plan talks about this particular properties, and that's unusual. Several times in the comprehensive plan, it gives a broad conclusion on what a particular area should be, but in this particular case, it says that if there's anything that comes for these properties, and this is located in the brown on the map here, that it has to be rezoned to LB3. So when the applicant first came in with his application, it was for a RM, a residential multifamily, and during talks with staff, we told them that it had to be LB3, and they gladly changed it to the request to LB3. So the LB3 zoning districts, the intent of this is to provide high-quality mixed-use development in the Northeast Triangle planning area in areas designated for mixed use in the comprehensive plan. And potential mixed use could be residential, commercial, office uses, art galleries, hotels and timeshares, and live workspaces, among a few. And again, this particular zoning district requires a special use permit if multifamily dwellings and townhouses are to be constructed. So we find that staff recommends that the rezoning of the property from B2 to LB3 is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And now we'll move on to the special use permit. So you've heard me say this before, but there are 6 criteria in which the zoning ordinance requires the city council to consider a special use permit. And all 6 criteria must be met in order for that special use permit to be approved. And the first one is the use in harmony with the adopted comprehensive plan. The second is the use in harmony with the intent and purpose of the zoning district in which the use is proposed to be located. And then the third is the use in harmony with the character of adjacent properties and the surrounding neighborhoods and with existing and proposed development. Staff has concluded that the proposal is not in harmony with these 3, and I will go into that. So I think first I'll just provide a little back history. So as I mentioned before, when the applicant first came into the office, it was for simply multifamily development. And we learned that that was not possible based on the comprehensive plan. It had to be LB3, and the LB3 required a special use permit. In looking at the Northeast Triangle planning area, there are specific properties along Merrimack Trail that have multifamily dwellings. And those multifamily dwellings are specific in the comprehensive plan and specific for the RM2 zoning district. And so therefore, at the Planning Commission level, what the Planning Commission decided and what staff concluded was, as it first came in, this proposal did not have any mixed-use components. It was only for townhouses and only for apartments. So with that, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the rezoning just to staff, but denial of the special use permit. During the time between October 18th of last year and now, the applicant has gone back and he has added mixed-use components that I talked to you about. And those 2 components are the 9,000 square feet of the commercial property off of Penniman Road and also the public art piece that is in the park. And so staff concludes that while these are mixed uses, it checks the box to be able to say that you have a mix of commercial. It does not meet the intent of the zoning district or the intent of the comprehensive plan. In that intent was to have a mix of uses within the parcel, and that there was some harmony between and thought process going into actually putting the mixed uses together, and not the placement of the mixed uses on the outskirts of the parcel. This is a rendering of the clubhouse. This, I should also add, and I think I've added before, but this is a part of the AP2 zoning overlay district, and so it did go before the Architectural Review Board in February and in, I believe, June of last year for conceptual review. And the renderings that you're seeing are the last conceptual drawings by the applicant. They have not gone back to get final approval, but they have made the revisions that the Architectural Review Board requested. These are renderings of the rear loading, townhouses. I should mention that at the request of staff, the applicant has all 76% of the townhouses to have rear facing garages instead of front facing garages, and there are only a few front facing garages for the townhouses that cannot be seen from Penniman Road. And this is a view of the apartment buildings. So I'll now go into the last three criteria for approval of a special use permit. The fourth is the use or is the development adequately served by essential public services such as streets, drainage, facilities, fire protection, and public water and sewer? And the answer to that is yes. Is the proposed use, will it result in the destruction, loss, or damage of any feature determined to be significant, ecologically, scenic, or historic? And the answer to that is no, it will not result in the destruction. And then lastly, will the proposed use, will it be designed, sited, and landscaped so that the use will not hinder or discourage the appropriate development or use of adjacent properties and surrounding neighborhoods? And the answer to that is yes. Staff has applauded the applicant in his submittal. Any changes that the staff requested, he provided, and we've had several meetings and sat down several times to go over some of those items. And he did the same with the Site Plan Review Committee at the Planning Commission level. So I've gone through this, but again, the Planning Commission recommended approval of PCR 22024, that was the rezoning, but they recommended denial of PCR 23019. Staff, while staff agreed that the rezoning in itself is compatible to the comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan are very specific, again, when it comes to this property and when it comes to this rezoning. And it states that if there is not a suitable master plan for the rezoning, if there's not a suitable master plan for the special use permit, then the rezoning should also be denied. And so based on that, staff recommends denial of the rezoning, PCR 22024, and also denial of PCR 23019, which is the special use permit. We do the same for the proposal that's before you today. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer that. I know there was a lot to take in. And also, the applicant also has a presentation, so you may get some of your questions answered when they speak. And if you can remember, Aaron Small is here to answer any of your traffic questions.
Do we have any questions for Tavia before the applicant come up?
Well, I had a couple of questions about the timeshare by right. You said that any new timeshare development would have to submit an application. Are they tied to a particular number of units, or is that something that planning would help them determine?
Yes, so based on, I went back and looked at the notes previously, and it looks like there was a number between 321 and 400 timeshare units. The property hasn't changed, and the zoning district hasn't changed, so my conclusion would probably be around the same amount that they would be able to have on the property.
And would there be a traffic study related to a timeshare development?
Yes, so The zoning ordinance allows a planning director and the planning commission to request a traffic study, and I would request a traffic study, and if I didn't, the planning commission would.
And have we had any requests for timeshares in the past 2-3 years?
No, ma'am,
'Cause
we have not.
they're not quite as popular to be built now, I don't think, as they used to be. And I do have a question for Aaron. Can I ask that now? So we talked about not having a left turn on Penniman and Page, and that you would turn right on Parkway.
Yes,
And I
ma'am.
think there would be a light put up there.
Yes, the traffic signal would be at Second Street and Parkway Drive.
And then there would still be one at Second Street.
Second Street and Page.
So are we concerned about having two traffic lights too close together,
That,
or?
the
how one-
proximity of them is actually far enough apart. The block distance there is enough that it's not that much of a concern. We would probably have to do something to make sure that they're synced up so that they work together, because they are close enough.
Yeah, because from Penniman to Second Street, it's not that long of a distance.
It's a few hundred feet, though. It's
Okay.
adequate enough that it's more than enough space.
Okay. Thank you.
Since Ms. Ramsey asked
Open
the
the door.
traffic question, so can you briefly talk about how the traffic study is conducted? Because what was provided in our packet was,
You were provided with the brief of it, basically like the Cliff Notes version.
Right.
And what it did is they look at the overall background traffic. They actually perform traffic counts, and they look at past history of the counts that VDOT has done on the primary roads. Luckily, Page Street and Second Street are both on the VDOT counts, so we get annual. We can see what that traffic looks like every year. And it's been fairly steady, if not dropping a little bit. So what they do is they take the background traffic, and then they project based on the traffic generation for the use of the apartments, and then we overlay that on top of the background traffic. They also add an increase to the traffic, basically an inflation factor, for what they call opening day. So they project this is our schedule of when the project's going to open, and then they add on an inflationary factor on that, a growth factor to the background traffic. And I don't remember what that was used, but it is significantly greater than what the past trends would show. So that gives you a conservative answer on what the traffic would show up. But basically, what we looked at is the traffic leaving and coming into the site. They generate an AM and a PM peak. And so they look at both, which one is the worst case. They also look at weekend traffic. And there's lots of studies that tell us how much vehicles per apartment unit are generating. So we know that data. We've got good background data to know what's going to happen. They then run the calculations to say, okay, which direction are they going? In and out of the things. Are we going down Penniman Road out towards the Wawa, heading out into York County? Or are we going out through Parkway Drive? Or are we going towards Page and Second Street? And then are they heading north or south in that case? So we come up with some percentages that make sense. And then we go through, okay, this is where people are working based on trends. Do they work in Newport News, so they might go this way or that way? We actually tend to look at a lot of using like Google Maps to kind of say what's the easiest way to send people here, there, and everywhere. And so that kind of gives us a percentage of which way the traffic's going to go. Then once you've done that, you then start to run the actual calculations, say, okay, this percentage is going this way during the peak, and then we look at the background at that time, and then you can study how does that intersection perform at that case. And what it showed is if we change the characteristics during that growth phase at Page Street, it's a lot of left turns, and that's a problem because with the background traffic increasing, that becomes an unsafe condition, especially with the sight distance there over the Page Street Bridge. Well, then, my suggestion to them was, what do you do if you make that a right in, right out? So that you can't turn left off of Penniman Road onto Page. What that does is all of that traffic then gets pushed over to Parkway Drive, and they have to make a left onto Second Street. When that happens and you put that added load over there, it makes it hit the vehicle warrants for a traffic signal. And so that's what they've proposed. And part of their proffer was our percentage of the traffic, because we're just the straw that broke the camel's back. They want to proffer the amount that they're contributing to that traffic signal.
So, yes, so I agree, Councilwoman Ramsey. I think, not a traffic engineer, but traveling that corridor, that a light at Parkway and Second is going to create backups. But we'll leave that there. And then, so do you have any idea on how much it costs to signalize an intersection?
Yes, we do. We have a very good number, and actually what they've proposed in their memo and in their traffic signal, I don't remember the total amount, but it was quite reasonable.
And then when you talk about the right turn only from Penniman to Page, how do you envision that being constructed? What barrier keeps a left turn from happening?
Right
Similar-
now, mostly the way it's done is there would be pork chop islands put out to prevent those left turns, and it would have to be a raised island to prevent that. And we'd also have to make sure that it swings out enough into the Page Street corridor such that you can't go around the island, and that's because all that does is create additional problems.
So then it would essentially take Page Street down to one lane. It'll go out that
No,
far?
not necessarily, because it'd probably be back up into the Penniman Road. I probably wouldn't recommend that, no. Especially not with the high number of right turns from once you're coming over the bridge that want to turn right onto Second Street.
Okay, thank you.
Just a follow-up real quick. So no left turn off of Penniman and no left turn onto Penniman? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it would also limit left turns onto Penniman. We can look at that because there's ways to actually configure the island such that it'd be only left turns
Gotcha. Thank you.
off of Penniman.
Thank you.
I had a question for Director Griffin. You mentioned something that I don't think I completely understand about density, and you said that they were under what the density cap. Can you explain a little bit more what density are you talking about right now?
Yes, so with the special use permit, they can have up to 14 units per acre.
I see, okay.
And 14 units per acre at the 17.8 acres gives them 235
I see.
units, and they are wanting to build 232.
I see. So it would be, at the end of all of this, should it come to pass, they would be underneath what would be allowable under the special use permit that would be in place.
That's correct.
Okay. And then my second question, which is more of just making sure that I kind of get the big picture here. So currently, we have a B2 zoning designation in this space,
Yes.
which is commercial, limited to commercial. At the end of all of this, if it happened, there would be LB3, which would be mixed use, which normally would require 67%, or a cap of 60. Tell me more about the end result of an LB3 vis-a-vis commercial versus residential
Yes.
on a parcel.
So the 67% is under the B3.
Oh, okay.
B2, excuse me, is under the
Okay.
B2.
Okay,
So they're requesting to no longer be B2.
I see.
And then the B2 doesn't allow just for multifamily. You have to have 67%.
I see.
You can't have no more than 67% be residential, and the rest has to be commercial.
And then under the LB3, there's a mixed use requirement, but it doesn't have that.
It does not have a
Percentage.
cap. So the LB3 does not have a percentage associated with it for the mixed use. That's
I
correct.
understand. So under either the B2 or the LB3, really, there is no formulation in which a primary multifamily parcel is allowable.
Correct.
Okay.
Going back
For
to
the
traffic, if
clarification.
I may. Where the light would be proposed, lights are good and bad, could slow down traffic, back up traffic. In your estimation, would a roundabout work there?
Not in that particular location, mainly because of it is such a congested corridor. A roundabout would take up a lot of room, which would require commercial property acquisition, and I don't think it's worth, a traffic signal would definitely do a better job in that more urban tight situation. I mean, obviously a roundabout could work, but I think this would not be a good location for it.
Questions for staff?
I do. Just two quick ones. The first one I had was, we may not have data around this, but I see this parcel, this proposal, similar to some of our part townhouses, part rentals in other parts of the city. So heavy core and rental is Midtown Row, some townhouses rental mix is High Street. Do we have any data around the demand or the occupancy rates of those units, and if the residential side of them have been a success?
The only one that I know of is High Street, and from my understanding, that is a very high occupancy. I dare to say it's not 100%, but it is close at High Street. That is the only one that I have, I can speak to today.
Thank you. And my second one was, so there's the B2 to LB3 designation that we're discussing, LB3 being not only commercial as B2 is, but allowing for the mixed use. Do we have a ratio of the preferable amount per square footage, per lot size of what would be commercial and what would be residential in a ideal LB3 mixed use development?
No, the LB3 zoning district does not specify a percentage. However, if you look at the ED1, which is economic development, and the ED2, it is no more than 40% of the gross area of the land can be residential.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. Those are all my questions.
And just to that point, the section that is sort of designated for commercial on this, I think you said 9,000 square feet.
Yes, so the entire parcel is 17 acres, and 9,000 square feet would be designated for commercial.
Okay, so who's quick with the numbers as to what
I'm
that
not that quick, but
percentage-
it's not high.
Need an engineer to know that.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll open the public hearing. I'm sorry.
Did you want the applicant to?
Yes, the applicant does have a slide presentation
We'll let him
prepared.
do that under the
Okay.
public hearing. So I'll open the public hearing and invite the applicant up to make the presentation. Right now.
So what's that word? Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Council.
Welcome, Mr.
Technology,
Trent.
just got my crash course. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Tim Trant, attorney with Kaufman and Knowles, 4801 Courthouse Street, Williamsburg, Virginia. It's my privilege to be here today on behalf of the applicant, Platinum Management, and just wanted to briefly introduce who's with me today. I just didn't order that they're seated. The principal of Platinum Management, Mr. Brad Waitzer, who you'll hear from at the end of my remarks. My colleague, Benny Zhang, who's well known to you all, and then a number of Mr. Waitzer's associates, which he will introduce. First, I would like to say, and it does work. I think it's important in my humble experience in doing this for 20-some years in this area for you all to know who is proposing to do business with you. The individuals behind a project. In my experience, right or wrong, that is a much greater determinant of the outcome than any proffer I could ever write. And so I'll talk a little bit about Brad and his family. They are local. That's first and foremost. Third generation here in Hampton Roads, third generation in multifamily development, property development, and ownership. All of their projects are here in Hampton Roads. that they own and manage. They are long-term owners. That's their business strategy, and Mr. Waits will talk about that. They're not, investors and quick flippers. They invest for the long term and long-term own their projects and self-manage them. So not only do they develop them, they're there day-to-day managing these projects, and that's really to ensure that long-term value and to secure that business strategy. Key component of their business strategy is long-term residence and reducing turnover. They do that in a number of ways, and you'll hear about that, I'm sure, some point today, but through trying to build a relationship among tenants so that they're more than just neighbors, they're a sense of community, they're friends, and then further building a relationship among their residents, not only as neighbors and friends, but as members of the broader community through community service projects. And that it's the right thing to do, first off, but it also has the business benefit of reducing turnover and building that long-term residential tenant base. Last but not least, Brad and his family are, I would humbly submit to you, the types of business partners and investors we all want in our communities. They are more than just real estate people. They are philanthropists. Brad and his family have endowed the Waitzer Gallery at the Chrysler Museum. This is just a small sampling of their community involvement and investment in giving back. Brad and his brothers recently made a donation of their parents' art collection, estimated to be worth more than $15 million, to the Berry Museum at ODU. Large donations to William & Mary Law School right here in our community. Large scholarship funds at EVMS, and fundraising in addition to their own money to support those funds. So humbly submit to you the kind of partners that we want investing in our community as they give back to those communities. Briefly, just highlight a few points in the project and turn the mic over to Brad. First and foremost, this is a redevelopment. This project represents redevelopment of an infill parcel. It's been developed, it's been demoed, everything around it's developed. This is an opportunity to secure the future of that property and some important placemaking. It's not a question of whether something will happen here or not, it's just what. And we would humbly submit to you this is a very, very significant opportunity to answer that question. It is a high-quality mixed-use project, exactly what the comp plan calls for. And it represents a diverse mix of uses. First of all, there's a public park, public art display, privately funded, by the way. There's a commercial component and a meaningful one. We're actually working with commercial property owners or commercial real estate professionals to try to secure that end user. We've already begun that process in the event that we were fortunate to receive your approval. We are contiguous to, immediately adjacent to other commercial properties. So there's a broad mix of commercial uses. The project provides for residential ownership and two styles of residential rental, both apartment rental and townhome rental. We have endeavored to, and Brad deserves most of the credit for this, to engage very diligently with the community, with the stakeholders, the business owners and residents most affected in our immediate vicinity. And the feedback that we have received, which has resulted in a lot of the written comments that you have received, which were handed out by my colleague Benny before the presentation, is the feedback we have received is overwhelmingly positive. And Brad would have me note that the three other corners of Penniman Page have provided written support for this project, the users of those properties. And then just conclude with 2 points, and I'll skip over all these slides. These are just visual aids in case we need to come back for questions. And that is that we believe the project that we're proposing is preferable to the inevitable alternative, which is by right development for timeshare and or hospitality uses. Part of the reason we are here before you today asking for a decision on this project is because Hilton has acquired Blue Green Properties and is now, or Blue Green Vacations, and is now in control of the property. And we're out of time. We have to either move forward with our project and close on the land and develop it, or surrender our opportunity and let it go back to Hilton. And with Hilton's growth strategy and their capitalization, we humbly submit to you, it's inevitable that some sort of hospitality use will be ultimately proposed, and we'd like to think our project is preferable to that. And last, but certainly not least, I will leave you with the thought that, and as more than a casual observer, that what has made Williamsburg in large part so special from a land use perspective is its sense of place, is the character, that very special land use character, the aesthetic, that timeless aesthetic that has been preserved, thankfully, for generations, both ours and many to come. And that didn't happen by accident, right? That happened very intentionally by our predecessors, both elected officials and private enterprise, taking political risk, making private business risk to create that sense of place, that high-quality aesthetic. Approving and investing in projects that weren't perfect by any means, but were great projects that secured that sense of place, provided that certainty and that high quality that we have come to enjoy, and that future generations will continue to enjoy. So Ed and I are not so arrogant to suggest to you that our project is perfect. It's not. It's absolutely the best we can offer you. We really have done everything we can to put our best foot forward. We would humbly submit to you that it is a great opportunity to secure that sense of place, that visual icon, to further that special land use character, that timeless character that is representative of the Williamsburg area for this property. And would ask for your, humbly and respectfully, your support in taking that political risk. And I will turn my mic over to Brad. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Trent.
Thank you, and we're running out of time, so I'll be very brief. I'm Brad Waitzer, as Tim said, and I appreciate your having me. I've met most of you, and I really appreciate what staff has done and helped us through this. Tim's done such a great job that there's not much left for me to say, but I just want to stress that I develop and own for the long term, 35 years so far, because I believe it's the best business strategy. This is very, very unusual and has enormous benefits for our properties and the greater community. Only in very unusual circumstances have I sold any apartments over the last 35 years, 2 times in particular. First, when I had kids, I made the conscious choice to limit my business travel, and I sold 2 properties that I had developed in Columbia, South Carolina, so I didn't have to get on an airplane and go down there and miss my kids' stuff. The second is, in the mid-90s, my brothers and I sold some apartments that we jointly developed to preserve family relationships. I'm sure that many can relate to the special challenges of family businesses, and I'm pleased to report, by the way, that it worked and the relationships were healed. Only in those 2 special circumstances have we ever sold property. No sales for the last 22 years, despite unprecedented opportunities when interest rates were so low. Simply put, we believe that the long-term benefits of owning great residential real estate far outweigh the short-term profits available from selling. This philosophy dictates that we build with the best materials, avoid architectural fads, choose locations, manage and maintain the properties extraordinarily well, and reinvest capital improvements in the long term. It also means that we take a keen interest in the larger community with our time and our philanthropy. And to ensure that it doesn't stop with my demise, I've surrounded myself with the best in the business and implemented a long-term succession plan led by a very talented 30-some-year-old who shares our philosophy. I appreciate your listening and your consideration, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Waitzer. Thank you. I do have some speakers cards, unless, Mr. Trent, did you have some more to offer? No?
Answer questions.
All right. Any questions for the developer? Thank you. Okay, first speaker's card I have is Laura Cody.
Good afternoon, City Council members, Mayor and Vice Mayor. Laura Cote. I live in Williamsburg at 12 Cole Lane, and I wasn't going to speak today. I just came to get sort of some information on some developments because we have something that's happening in our neighborhood. But I was here the first time he presented his plan, I think it was in October, November, and I thought it was just too many units, and I still think what he's proposing is just too big for the area. I just don't understand how it benefits the city of Williamsburg or that particular area that's right on the edge of the historic area, which is pretty special. I can't see that the traffic plan, I'm not sure how that came about, but I can only see roads widening. And he mentioned the island as one of the alternatives to the left turn, building an island, and those roads are so tiny. I just don't see how all of us can sit here and say those roads aren't going to be widened, it's going to be traffic problems. I just don't see it benefiting the city. I mean, I think something should happen there, but maybe not on this scale. It's just, to me, overbuilding, and that's just, I want to keep the city I love. I've lived here for the last 20 years on and off in the military. This is my 3rd time here, and I've seen the city change. I saw Newtown built. I've seen the new Midtown, which is great use of a existing area that's already been, a commercial space, and no trees were taken down. It was just reusing space. I thought that was great. And this I think I remember this before the hotel was torn down. And I go over there to the Velvet Shoestring and things, so I'm in that little area a lot. And I just think, that should be rethought. I think something should go in there, but maybe not to this scale. And that's really all I have to say. I hope you consider it. I'm saying you shouldn't put something there, but it just seems overkill to me. And it's changing our city to a place maybe I don't really know if I want to stay in the future. So thank you for listening. I appreciate all of you, and you always do a really good job listening to people, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Next speaker's card I have is Ms. Sarah Gunn. Welcome, Ms. Gunn.
Hello. Well, I walked in here and I wasn't really planning to speak. And then I started thinking about, you look at these traffic plans and they figure how people are going to go to work, but they don't think about, I was just thinking about Lafayette Street and Francis Street. I'm over there on 2nd Street a lot because my bank is over there. And depending upon when you are there, the traffic is a lot, there's a lot of traffic. And then when you get on Francis Street, that's a tiny little street. And the cars are on either side, and then you have to watch to be sure nobody's crossing the street in front of you, and then you've got Colonial Williamsburg buses. So I just think that I'm not opposed to a level of control growth. There's certainly an opportunity over there, and with all due respect to the people who are trying to do this are good. It's just, I don't think we need apartments over there. And I don't know about how many are going on Henry Street. That's a massive amount of apartment buildings. And, I read a letter that Henry Wolf wrote about students needing a place to live. Can't students rent those new apartments over there off of Henry? Is that restricted? So they can rent that. I mean, I would think that would be, it's much closer. I mean, if you don't have a car, although most students have cars these days, that is a much better place to live than having to be on the other side. I'm just worried about the high density and also our traffic in our little town, that it's already getting more congested. And I think we've got to slow that down because we're going to lose the flavor. And while we're all here, it's still a little town, and I think we should think about it continuing to be a little town. So that's my 2 cents. And just wait, though, until those apartments over there on Henry Street, all of a sudden you're going to need stoplights all up and down Henry Street, because people don't just go to work and leave. They do stuff on the weekends, too, or, after they get home from work. We're going to be really congested. 2 cents. Bye.
Thank you, Ms. Gunn. The next speaker's card I have is Robert Wilson. Welcome, Mr. Wilson.
Good afternoon. My name's Robert Wilson. I'm a resident of the city of Williamsburg and live in the Port Anne community at 22 The Palisades. I'm opposed to the proposed rezoning at Penniman Road and Broadway Avenue to construct high-density multifamily housing. This is part of a larger problem for us, right? Last year we had Colonial Williamsburg seeking a high-density rezoning of a Spotswood property. This property is another example of developers trying to take advantage of the city's desire to solve the student housing problem at the College of William and Mary. The college currently has 3 dormitories out of use, resulting in students overpopulating family neighborhoods in the city, displacing families, and adding student parking off campus. Further, the college has signaled its long-term plans to increase enrollment with no new net student housing or parking. Neither the city nor the college will continue to prosper if this situation can't be addressed. And you don't have to take my word for it. Here's an extract from an email from the city manager to Clint Fleet, the CEO of Colonial Williamsburg, during the discussion of the Spotswood property. Focusing on the William and Mary decision to increase revenues by increasing the student population, we have a negative impact on the community, particularly its neighborhoods surrounding the city center and college, by having to provide off-campus housing for upper-class students. There is a need for an additional 10 three-person off-campus rental houses for each additional 100 students. There is a need to create private development plans for off-campus student housing, and I disagree. The answer is not for the city to have to seek out and approve more and more high-density housing to solve the college's problems. The answer is for the college to build more on-campus housing and student parking to accommodate their current and future student enrollment. Until they do, the answer is to reduce student enrollment. This council should push back on the college's growth plans and engage in a shared planning process to balance growth. Our city council should follow the Blacksburg, Virginia City Council's lead and challenge the college's growth plans until they have the housing infrastructure to accommodate it. You are the representatives of the city residents, not the College of William and Mary, not Colonial Williamsburg, and not developers. I can't conceive that the residents of the city of Williamsburg will agree to increased high-density plans that increase our traffic and increase the environmental impact on the city. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The next speaker's card I have is Kathy Scott.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. My name's Kathy Scott, and I am President of Signature Management, the property manager for properties owned by members of the Waitzer family. Please forgive me if I stumble a bit. I had cataract surgery on Tuesday, but I thought it was very important for me to tell you how we're different from any apartment management company I've known, and how Brad is different from any apartment owner I've known. And I'm speaking from having literally grown up in the business from childhood. I've worked for Brad since 1991, starting as the site manager on his very first Hampton Roads development, which he still owns, and is being extensively upgraded as we speak. That was way before we ever contemplated having gray hair. That's his, not mine. Brad develops and owns properties forever. It's a philosophy learned from his father. Brad's nieces and nephews own his father's first development, a small office building which recently renewed the lease of its first tenant from 1967 through 2027. That's 60 years. That longevity is not accidental. We manage for the long term, and that is our most important consideration in every business decision. A few examples. We hire, train, and retain great people because they are key to the strategy. Unusual, for a company our size, we have a full-time training associate who's coming up on 30 years, starting from the bottom of the organization to teach policies and procedures, but more importantly, our customer and community-centric culture. The same is true on the maintenance side, with a 20-plus year employee. We implement and enforce strict rules and protect neighbors, the properties, and the community as a rental community as opposed to a for-sale community. We have the mechanisms to effectively carry out that goal. We hold regular social, cultural, and community service activities for our residents and staff members. They're not beer bashes that you see and hear about, but they're movie nights, arts and crafts instruction, food and school supply drives supported by large donations from the property owners, fitness and wellness activities, and on and on. They're all designed to foster a sense of community within our properties in the larger community. We have strict procedures to guarantee great customer service, supported by great training and a special culture with a long-term view towards maintenance and capital spending. Most importantly, we go above and beyond to ensure that our residents conduct themselves in a way that makes them great neighbors and protect the property. For instance, unlike other management companies, our staff members are required to actually check rental references. They are also required to personally verify employment and income because fraud is rampant. Additionally, as an extra precaution, we're rolling out a new third-party service that detects fraud in the application process. We also require that roommates individually qualify for tenancy because we've seen over the years that roommate splits can create a practical and financial problem. We have very few students reside at any of our communities. All in all, we reject over half of our applicants, which is unheard of. But we found that this extra care on the front end makes sense over the long term. Nobody else I know is so careful, and certainly nobody with a short-term outlook manages this way. They just want to lease it up very fast, show the owners or potential purchasers high occupancy. The results are clear and directly enhance the communities in which we operate. Our resident turnover is less than half of the norm, and we have a resident retention rate exceeding 80%. We don't lose residents to other apartments only if they leave the area or buy a home. They become part of the fabric of their communities and contribute to the area's quality of life. And we win many, many awards. I'm proud when our people win awards. However, I admit that a recent property award from the Regional Apartment Trade Group was a real honor. One of our properties was chosen as the region's best, but not unusual for us. What's unusual is this was a 24-year-old property, not a brand new one with all the bells and whistles. Brad invested over $5 million into the property over the last few years, with nearly $1 million more in capital improvements planned in the next 12 months. He knows, we know, and we want you to know that long-term generational management and capital improvement policies, unrestrained from limits imposed by outside partners or influences, pays off for the owners and the larger community. Thank you.
Scott. Next speaker's card I have is Susan or Thomas Patton. Who gets the short straw? Welcome, Ms. Patton.
Susan Patton, 505 Capitol Court. Number one, I would like to say thank you for your effort. Actually, you are the man that's been going around in the neighborhood, which has been different. And we have liked a lot of what you have done, what you've put together, what you've talked about. However, we live in Capitol Court. I've heard nothing about the traffic coming out of Capitol Court. We have, I believe, 8 residences in that little area. You put an island right there to keep us from going left onto Page Street. Is that what you were talking about? An island there? Or are you talking about there on? Okay, so when we come out, we can turn left or we can turn right. Okay, if you come over the bridge and you're coming to the Pancake House, you can turn right. If you're coming up Page and you're going to the Pancake House, you can turn left. Correct?
Potentially.
Right now.
Okay, so to me, the only left-hand turn that you are stopping is coming out of Penniman onto Page, which I think is a great idea. But the rest of it, no. You've got too much zigzagging going on all over the place. And if you've got a bunch of tourists in town trying to get to the Pancake House, you're going to have a mess going on there, okay? because we live there, we experience that traffic. So you have not only your tourism traffic that happens when Busch Gardens is open, but you also have any traffic that's coming off the I-64 when there's an incident there. People have to come off of that highway onto 60 and Page and Capitol Landing Road, or vice versa, to get from one exit or an entrance to the other. So that is a big bunch of cars. Going down, anybody that is going to live in that area that works across town, what is the idea? Are they going to go down Lafayette? Are they going to go down Capitol Landing Road to the cut road that goes across, by Street, can't even think of what the word is right now, but how are they going to move from our side to that side, the east side to the west side to the east side? What corridor are they taking? Are you thinking that they're going to take I-95 or 199 all the time, or are they going to cut through? I like to get places fast. I'm cutting through if I need to get someplace, okay? That's going to change a lot of what's going on in the town and on Lafayette Street. I haven't heard that we have a problem in that cul-de-sac. We don't, thank God, but some of the others do, about sewage. How is this area going to affect the infrastructure of that as well? There's also, I don't have this information, but one of my other neighbors has this. She's sick, she couldn't be here today. But there are people who hang out underneath the bridges there. I don't know if you know that information, but that is some good information for you too to know. I don't know if they cause what kind of problems or anything, but I know that she just knows that they're there. And the other thing is, if this is apartments and townhouses where people, residents that are staying here, how is this going to affect the school system? Where are these children going to go to school? Are they going to go to Matthew Whaley? Are we going to have to build another school? How is this going to affect that? And we want something nice, which I think is what y'all are offering in this area, but the density, the amount of people that are going to be going there, 232, that's possibly 400 extra cars. That's a lot on top of everything else. So, and I'm not sure, you had said something about a percentage of how many houses can be on an acre, but is it buildable acre or is it the whole parcel of the acreage of the land? It's 17 acres, but is all of it buildable? So that's my say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patty. Next speaker's card is Tess Mills. Excuse me. Welcome, Ms. Mills.
Hello, City Council members, Mayor. I am a neighbor, Tessa Millis. I live at 415 Mill Neck Road. So my husband, Ron, began visiting Colonial Williamsburg as a 9-year-old kid many years ago. In fact, that is why we are living in Williamsburg today. He loved it that much. So while Ron has been the history buff in the family, we both love and appreciate the small town charm of this city. We like the history, we like the woods and the greenery, and we also like the ability to get from one end of town to the other. So far, this is quite unlike Newport News, where we landed in 1989, raised our kids there. We'd like it to stay the way it is. Please don't replace our green spaces with parking lots and extra cars. We have many vacant townhomes and apartments in Williamsburg, York, and James City counties, and the city doesn't have a housing shortage. The college has the housing shortage. With that in mind, there needs to be really clear focus on preserving the character of the city. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next speaker's card is Philippa Doramus.
Council, I appreciate your time and attention. I'm going to speak a little bit loudly because I haven't been able to hear back there of some of the other presenters, so probably not
Pull the
trying to be
microphone closer to
too
you.
loud. All right, I'm not going to tell you about my family, though I have a lovely one. I'm not going to tell you about my charitable contributions, though I have a lot of them, but I can tell you I am not a multimillionaire. I'm a citizen here, and I have a house that I see this property every day because I'm on Capitol Court. So I know a lot about the traffic issues, problems, infrastructure, sewage backup, water, all of that is existing. So I was a little bit surprised to hear that there are perceived no infrastructure problems or traffic problems, because there are. And my concern is that this property being proposed will just greatly contribute to those problems without much benefit to the community, except possibly in some revenue. So where other people see a vacant lot, I see greenery, I see an open space, and I see gorgeous old pine trees. Now, I could be considered a tree hugger, but I mean, it's some beautiful nature there. So the idea of it being bulldozed and concrete get it over, when so much of that is happening in our community on the outskirts of Williamsburg and within Williamsburg, is of great concern to me. I'm opposed to the development because I perceive density problems, the infrastructure problems that it would create, the traffic problems, and also what I see as an incompatibility to the surrounding area and colonial Williamsburg, taking away from that charm that you've heard several other people mention. I really think that it's misleading to say 17 acres for 14 units per acre to approximately 240 units. I think that's misleading because it is not all developable. There's spaces that can't be developed, and then you've got the railroad track. So I think that is misleading. And I really would encourage my esteemed people here and the planning is surely we can find a better use for the property, either keep it more green or bring the numbers down so it will not create quite as many problems. Because I'm very concerned, living in Williamsburg and seeing the changes over the last 10 years that our development is expanding at a potentially harmful way to impact negatively what Williamsburg is for the future. So thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So I have several other speakers cards, but none identifying the subject as to this matter, so I'll hold those. There's going to be an open forum later. See Ms. Fairbanks coming up. But I'll open the opportunity for anybody else who would like to speak on this matter to come forward, and we'll start with Ms. Fairbanks.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Fairbanks. I own property about a street over from the Penniman Road, Page Street development off of Capitol Landing Road. I feel this project is based on assumptions by people who may not understand our community. This may be because the seller is based in Florida, the developer is based in Virginia Beach, and many of the assumptions made were done by a company from Northern Virginia. I believe the people who will live in this complex or who need housing in the city, generally speaking, are retirees. And I don't feel like they will be interested after having spent most of their lives saving money and maybe having the over $91,000 income that these people who are supposed to live here should have. I don't know that they're going to want to live in an expensive townhouse or apartment next to the railroad tracks. Our workforce is unable to afford expensive apartments. They certainly aren't making $91,000 a year. And the one bedrooms at this complex are starting at $1,800 a month. So there may be some younger citizens who would be interested in these rentals. However, this demographic is generally dependent on their parents' income, and generally they want to live with friends and share expenses. So I really don't know who is the demographic for all of these one bedrooms, because I don't think that's what people in Williamsburg want. I think that you need to plan for, like with our other rentals, I think you need to plan to have 3 unrelated people in every single one of these units, and along with all of them having vehicles. as many people have mentioned about the traffic. The developer's attorney, Mr. Trant, recently represented a James City County developer where a 126-unit apartment complex generated 912 additional cars every day to our roads. So, this is not quite double, or maybe is double that, but that could, if they're using the same formula, that could be 1,700 additional cars per day. I guess what I would like to close with is that, with due respect to Mr. Waitzer and all of his associates, these developers are not coming to Williamsburg to do charitable works. They're coming here to develop high-end luxury apartments that are very expensive, and they're coming here to make money. So, and I just don't feel like this is part of the goals and initiatives of our council. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fairbanks.
Thank you.
Yep. Welcome, sir. If you just state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name's Bruce Herndon. My wife Celia and I live in the area on Page Road that faces the development. So we see that every day, and I have to second what Susan and Philippa said, and all the comments about traffic. In that area, we've had 2 vehicles and a motorcycle end up in our front yard and do considerable damage because there are so many cars that don't necessarily follow the speed limits. They're dodging each other and stuff, and adding to that's not going to help. Brad was kind enough to come to our house, and he delivered some materials that gave us a lot of information about the planning for the development. It looks comprehensive. There are several questions I have. For 40 years, I was an Air Force officer in intelligence. I negotiated or was party to negotiations in the role they had as developers all around the world. In Australia, you've probably heard about the mishap we had there, if you know what the Falcon and the Snowman are out there. But in Asia, North America, and Latin America, and Europe, negotiated those. I've never seen an instance where I've seen less demands made by the community. I mean, they wanted financial guarantees about this or that or whatever, but very firm requirements, and they wanted to know how they're going to be overseen. I think that the developers here are good intentioned, and reading through their documents, they make a lot of statements, positive statements about things. I don't see anything in there about oversight, how you're going to guarantee that these things are going to come to fruition. Certainly nothing's going to be guaranteed, but everything seems to be a lot of statements that aren't verified. Past performance doesn't guarantee that this project would be a success. I'm less inclined to depend on statements made about people's personal development in their careers or something like that. We're all very concerned about our community. And the impact on our school system is a concern. I know I did a study back in 1990 with the University of Southern California for the city of Alexandria, Virginia. They were estimating there that in primary schools, it was costing $12,500 a year per student. And at the secondary level, it was nearly $25,000 per year per student. So the financial impact, if we have to build new schools or something, there's a lot more that needs to be fleshed out, I think, before we move forward on something like that. But that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to come speak to this matter? Geyser?
Know that ahead of time. I admire everybody who actually wrote their thoughts down ahead of time, because I don't tend to do that. But my general feeling is that we're slaying the goose that laid the golden egg. We are all here because we love the ambiance, the character, the unique nature of Williamsburg, Virginia. It is world-renowned, not just for the colonial restoration area, but because It's a wonderful town to live in. It has proximity, it has this incredible flavor about it. I just drove down Francis Street at 8:30 this morning. I saw 30 or 40 people in colonial garb crossing the street. I assume they were going to an employee meeting, I'm not sure, but it's a phenomenal place to live. And we're chopping away at it with pickaxes, little by little, and the edges are fraying. And this push to growth, I heard somebody say at the work session, growth is inevitable. I fundamentally disagree. I don't think growth is inevitable. I think that there has to be a big breath and a pause. The person who said, wait and see what happens once the governor's in units come up, and then you will see this glut of traffic and flow. And I agree with that. We're moving so fast you can't see the effects. You can project the effects, but by the time we experience it, I'm afraid we're going to be in gridlock town. We are making little or no moves that I am aware of. Now, maybe that's happening and I'm just unaware, possible. But we live in a time where we're supposed to be responsibly mitigating reliance on the automobile. We at this point, I think, are all aware that climate change is real and has the potential to be catastrophic. And we should not be continuing to design Williamsburg as if the car is king. We're way past that. We absolutely have to slow growth and change our reliance on the automobile, or we're all going to have to move somewhere else. And I don't want to live in Newport News. I want to live here. That's what I think your responsibility is to guarantee that Williamsburg stays Williamsburg. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kaiser. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Lourdes Farley, 143 Little John Road. I'm going to keep it very short. Listening to the gentleman who represents the company made me wonder if it's really true that they are a family-owned business, because at no time schools, the impact on the schools was mentioned. Let's remember that this is the future of society. The children that attend Matthew Wiley, the group of the kids attend there is only 452, 16 children per teacher. Let's not assume that all of those units are going to be rented to students from William and Mary. Let's assume also that, hey, some families are going to be coming. Then what? Then we're going to get a bunch of, a high increment on the amount of kids attending to that particular school. Traffic seems a mess. I don't think you guys really understood. I didn't understand, left here, turn right. I frequent that area, and because of the bridge, when you turn left, if somebody's coming fast, you're fried. Anyways, let's think about responsible development, the consequences. I'm not against development altogether, but the consequences should be kept in mind. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to come forward? Mr. Hughes, welcome.
Welcome. Stuart Hughes, 103 Williamsburg Avenue. Here again, I spoke briefly Monday, but it's on the same topic as in regards to traffic. The studies that Aaron had put forth indicated there were 700 possible new car traffic per day for a built-out unit. The question arises, of these studies, as I said, it should be a big pause to look to see how Henry Street, how this project, and the other projects on the extension of Capitol Landing and building that up, the sports center, how they all apply in a auto growth situation. This is not occurring. It's just taking it one step at a time, but not overlooking the entire complex, or the whole picture, I guess you would have to say. So we got the sports center, we got Bypass Road being built. Monticello Avenue was supposed to have been over on Capitol Landing before they decided to go ahead and build there in Monticello, those complexes. So I would have to say that Capitol Landing will have the same view, the number of traffic, all coming in on Page Street, and it was mentioned before. Interstate backs up, it's one line of traffic. How do you get across? Another question is, the C&O have a say over the bridge, or what can be built that goes over that bridge? Who owns that bridge? Who controls it? C&O, the state, or the city? So all these things need to have an opportunity to see how it all works out to maintain the character, the soul of the town of Williamsburg. And the question of new students, the question is, has James City County and the city of Williamsburg come to a conclusion on who's responsible for the schools? All those things need to come together before it's too late. Gridlock. Across town is tough. There's only 4 ways to get across the railroad tracks. And it becomes difficult for the people who live in town. And fortunately, I can say 72 years worth. So it's a great place. Don't want to see it wither and die. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. We'll close the public hearing and we'll come back to council for discussion. So I guess I'll kick it off, but first by thanking the developer. I know that a lot of work goes into putting together these types of proposals, a lot of resources, time and money and effort, and I think what you've designed is a good-looking building, and some of the offers that you've made in terms of contributions to affordable housing, the public park, are all significant attributes to your proposal here. As I look at the rezoning, I'm mindful, thinking back to how we got to the B2 district and the 2/3 residential, 1/3, and I remember those conversations back on my planning commission days. That was an initiative to help preserve our business district, but provide opportunities for redevelopment of some of the older properties by allowing for some housing to come in, but preserve at least a ground floor. So if you took a redevelopment, you built 3 floors, 2 floors residential, 1/3 commercial, we would still have that commercial aspect of that piece of property. And I see that still here as an opportunity. If I look at this plan, I've speculated in the past, how successful would adding a single piece of commercial there be? I think in this configuration, it wouldn't be that successful, but maybe in a different plan, some additional commercial would be successful. And that leads me to think that, even if we approve the LB3 district, allowing for mixed use and commercial, we will thus preserve that property for some commercial aspect, because it's very important. Everybody wants to live in Williamsburg. We know that. This project would be very successful in terms of attracting tenants. And I also applaud the developer for hearing some of my concerns about having some of these units being owner-occupied. I think we have a high percentage of rental properties, an opportunity on some vacant land to build houses or townhomes for sale, so that people can buy a piece of this great city and start their families or retire here, whatever it is, and just continue that American dream with home ownership, this is an opportunity to do that. And so the Weitzer family did make overtures to that, and I appreciate them listening by offering the 12 units for sale. So, but thank you. But I'm not sure that's enough. You know, I certainly recognize the potential of this property, the value of this property. It's a blank canvas, and I'm just concerned that we haven't seen the best offer or opportunity for this piece of property yet. So I'm interested in hearing what my colleagues have to say before I make a final decision. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I too would like to thank the applicant. Obviously, whatever the outcome today is no reflection on your history with the other projects that you have and what you presented to council for consideration. I do raise, at this moment, I do share some of the concerns with many of the people that have spoken either, and I applaud all of the community for coming forward to either speak today or reaching out to city council in emails, whether it was concerns about the project or support for the project. We take all of those very seriously and take them into consideration. So I do appreciate everybody taking the time to do that. I do share the concerns that many of the residents have raised today and also through contact before this meeting. I too, as someone who travels that corridor a lot, believe that the traffic estimate is not a fair estimate of what the traffic congestion could be with this many units. I also believe that the impact on city services may be a little underestimated, and also on our school systems. So, you know, and often we go back to our affordable housing work group study that said, you know, we all realize we need to provide housing at all levels. And we've done that. We've addressed the number one goal for affordable housing, at least the first applicant to come forward, and that was a hotel conversion. One of the things that concerns me is the number of rental units, and for the projects, for those that don't know, the overlook at Tutter's Neck is 86 townhome sales and rental. That's already been approved by council. Greenwood Village, 151 condos and townhouses, sales and rental. Baymont Hotel, a conversion to 74 apartments. The Governor's Inn, 162 apartments. And then one small development, Patriot Lane, 8 townhouses. That's the only one that's sale. The other is a combination of it's either all rental or rental and sales. So that concerns me with the number of rental units that we have already that have been approved. We only have one that's under construction right now, and we don't know the impacts. Everybody estimates what the impacts will be, but we really don't know those impacts. One of the speakers today mentioned controlled growth. And I think for me, we're at a point where we need to look at controlled growth. I agree with the mayor that, you know, this is the first proposal we've had for this property. It's not a bad proposal. As the applicant indicated, it's not a perfect proposal, but also don't think that we've envisioned what opportunities might be there for the city of Williamsburg. So I too am interested to hear what the rest of my council colleagues have to say. But if we have to decide today, I would have to say that I would not support this project.
Sure.
Thank you. And yes, thank you to the applicant. I think there's been an extraordinary amount of really good quality communication, both with the residents, and I applaud going to door and talking to business owners and the other individuals that live near the property. And I think that is a real model for how one should engage with the potentially impacted residents of our community. I think that this is not a simple decision. We do have to acknowledge that we do have housing shortage in Williamsburg, and not just vis-a-vis the college, but also professionals, young professionals, families who work here. So this is a multidimensional problem, and so we have to, I think as a community, recognize that there's a lot of levers and pulleys going on here, and to think that this is simple right? Or that there's an easy answer. Either way, right, I don't think does justice to the complexity of the issue that we're facing. I do, though, come back to a couple things that sort of guide me when I'm thinking about how to approach something like this. And one, when somebody mentioned it today, and I think it's really a touchstone of intentionality. Like, are we sure, no one can see the future. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. We do the best we can with the data we've got and move forward the best that we know how. And no solution is going to be perfect. But I do think that we can take a step and say, okay, what do we really want? And how do we want to grow? In what way? And in what way that serves the most people in our community and the way that we want them to be served. And I also then look at the principle of what have we already done to this point, and I think that this is where I'm looking at, the kind of the background that the mayor gave about, we have B2 with an upper limit on, the part that can be residential, LB3 even, like as sort of contemplated in the comprehensive plan, really does contemplate a mixed use for this space. So either way, we're looking at a space that can serve different functions in our community. And what I see here is it very much kind of disregards that prior wisdom or what we are going to use to guide us forward and really swing really hard into a very dense multifamily development. And I think that, that on its face, it looks very lovely, and I think it's a very good idea, but I am not convinced for the reasons that the vice mayor pointed out with all the other complexes coming online, and for the reasons that the mayor stated about the thinking sort of behind of what may be possible in this parcel. For those reasons, I have very, strong hesitations about moving forward with this particular proposal.
My turn. So, I would like to thank everyone for coming forward, and also the applicant and the applicant's counsel for all of the outreach. And many of my comments are going to be similar to what you've already heard. In and of itself, I like the project to address a critical need of housing that we have, because we do have it in all categories. I like the fact that this property is in an area where people who work in Colonial Williamsburg and William and Mary would be able to actually walk or bike to their jobs. And it takes advantage of a piece of property that's been vacant for many years. The applicant, as we've heard, is well respected and known for not only developing quality product, but his philanthropic efforts in other cities and in Williamsburg. He's the type of developer we want for Williamsburg. But I can't separate this project from what's around it, which gives me pause in three areas. One is the comprehensive plan. A lot has changed since it was written, but it's what we have now, and it is a guideline, but I think that as we have it now, it needs to be adhered to unless there's a compelling reason not to. As the representative to the EDA, I'm constantly reminded about the small amount of commercial space that we have, and that once it's gone, it's gone. And I don't feel that 9,000 square feet, which is, Mr. Rogers informed me, is 1.1%, meets the intent of mixed use. I am concerned about the traffic, like comments that have been made. I think we need to take a holistic approach. After Capitol Landing Road is more complete, and we know how that's going to impact the whole area, as well as the redevelopment of the visitor center. And I feel that a review of the comp plan is probably going to be needed for this area, because a lot has changed since the pandemic with what commercial space is, what's required, how people work, where they work, how much they work. And so I feel that, again, a holistic approach taken, look at traffic trends would be appropriate. In a way, I feel that this project is trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and I'm just not comfortable at this time moving it forward. I wish that the applicant didn't have the time constraints that he has, so that we might be able to work a little bit more through this. But we can't forget that this property is owned by a corporation, and that some type of development is evident, and that they will be looking to something. We don't know, as to say, exactly what that is, and any development, any developer, yes, they will want to make a profit off of that, and anyone who owns rental property does so to make a profit. So even though I can't support this project, I do hope that the applicant will consider Williamsburg for something else down the road. Thank you.
Mr. Rogers?
I first want to thank everyone for taking time out of their day and coming to speak in front of us. I recognize that's a serious time commitment, so I counted 12. Thank you for the 12 folks that came and spoke. I also want to say we got a lot of emails in support, too, for people who were in support of the group. And so for anyone who ended up calling us, emailing us, or coming to speak today, thank you all very much for doing so. It's a part of this democratic process, and we appreciate your participation. I look at this a different way, and months back, council considered an item, I'll be purposely vague here, in which I had voted against someone who ended up, despite it having a direct impact on their property, thanked me for the thoughtfulness that I approached the measure. And so I hope that you all will treat my consideration the same, because the way I look at this project is still in what I see to be the best position for Williamsburg. So I kind of look at it from 6 perspectives, 3 of them in the macro environment of our city, and 3 of them in the more micro environment of our city. The first one is I want to look at precedent in what has been approved on that parcel in the past. Now, it was stated by our planning director that right now there is not the still standing approval to create 400 timeshares. However, in the last 20 years, that has been both approved, presented and approved, and then re-presented and reapproved in the 2000s and the 2010s. So the first thing that comes to mind is on our consideration around traffic and the impact of the area. A 232 bedroom strong development is smaller than the potential size and impact of a 400 unit strong timeshare parcel. I also have an idea of, given I share the concerns around the time constraint that the developer has today, what might happen with Hilton now purchasing blue-green property and proposing what they might. Now, it would still take council approval, but I, for one, would not be in favor of maintaining it as commercial space, even if it were for timeshares. A quick Google elicits these 3 headlines I'll share with the group. 11 reasons why buying a timeshare is almost never a good investment. Here's why buying timeshares are a bad investment, and 4 reasons timeshares are a scam. Right now, you can actually go online and buy a timeshare for $1 because there are people trying to offload them from their balance sheets. Now, that's not to say every timeshare property is a bad development, but I bring it up because we should look at this not just as a field which is untouched, but as a precedent that in 50 years has not had much interest in it, except for the development of a timeshare property, which could fall into disarray with disinterest. Also, for the point of some folks who came and speak about the developer living in a different part of Hampton Roads and not being a local, I'll note that Hilton headquarters is in McLean, Virginia. So they are, in being a corporate entity and elsewhere in Virginia, I would argue less interested in the long-term impact of their product than someone more local. The second macro reason that comes to mind is the word blithe, or general disarray that a property can fall into given not being attended to more regularly. This property has been undeveloped for 50 years. I recognized some speakers earlier that said that there are folks who hang out under the bridges. Now, generally Williamsburg, I think, treats our transient population well in trying to connect them to city services, but I look at the property and I would have a hurt in my heart if we were taking a full wooded parcel with a miniature biome in and of itself and knocking it down. But in driving by it, there are gravel lots for a couple cars, and there are weeds across the entirety of the green field. So given its infield development, ripe for development in an area which already held residential units and was permitted to have commercial units, I think it is a good potential for this development. The third is growth, and I'll continue with the theme of measured growth, because I don't want to be tagged as someone who is build, the same types of people who are drill. There is a type of development that works in Williamsburg, and there is a type that doesn't. My concern around housing, though, as we think about growth, is that we could significantly cut the demand for housing in Williamsburg if we asked Busch Gardens to close down and William & Mary to cancel their school for data science, because you would end the seasonal workers who live here, and you might end the professors with their computer science backgrounds that are coming to teach. But that would harm some of the assets that we consider core to the city. And I think that in the end, this residential parcel meets some of the affordable housing needs that I'll get into in a moment, and would actually benefit areas already needing investment. We have coined the term the edge of a commercial district in Williamsburg for craft beer and for retail. This would co-locate there, and it would be within a walking distance of Colonial Williamsburg. So for those three reasons, I see the macro environment in Williamsburg as needing housing that is smartly considered by a local developer, and one which is not cramming in as many people into a parcel as is possible. The three micro reasons then are around focusing on this proposal as is, and those are around affordable housing, the ideals of mixed-use development, and some more anecdotal comments I've heard in favor of the parcel. The first on housing, I was a part with Councilwoman Ramsey of a affordable housing work group in 2021 that said then, 3 years ago, mind you, there were 1,247 units in demand in Williamsburg as far as necessary housing. Now, this was not for the growth of the student population to come from enrollment increases. These were for working professionals, and it was across the socioeconomic spectrum of people making less than $25,000 a year and more than $125,000 a year. So I see this need for housing, and then try to consider myself, well, what are the development proposals which could meet that? There was a comment on the price of this housing and how $1,800 for a one-bedroom unit might be too much. Actually, if you consider a young working married couple, $900 per person per month strikes me as more affordable for our area and within attainment for a group that we would like to bring to Williamsburg and providing a housing stock, even if it is, I agree with this, more skewed towards rentals than ownership than we would like. It is still providing that opportunity for additional housing. That's the first tenet of affordable housing that it satisfies, is just trying to take a chunk out of the existing demand. The second, which hasn't gone noticed today, is the developer's proffer to provide $1,500 per unit into a city's affordable housing fund, which would seed our affordable housing fund to the tune of $350,000. We could then use this fund for the continuation of workforce housing goals. So that might be a down payment assistance fund, a rehabilitation fund, but this not only as a proposal would satisfy some of the demand, that 1,247 units that we have existing in Williamsburg, but it would also help seed an affordable housing fund to help deal with those who most need housing. The second reason I have is in supporting vibrancy. The LB3 district, I asked earlier around the mix of commercial and residential, and it was brought up that the commercial offer in this property is minuscule, and I agree that it is. But I also try to think of Williamsburg in some of the other measures that council has, aside from housing, such as our bikeability as a city, as what can be accomplished within a 20-minute city. Within a 20-minute walk, where can you get to without, as was mentioned earlier, the need to always rely on your car? So a couple things you can get to within a 20 minutes. A grocery store, being Food Lion, some core participants in the EDGE district program, Casa Pearl, Shorty's Diner, VBC. You can also walk to Colonial Williamsburg from this district. So yes, it does solve that left-hand turn lane, which is nice from a traffic flow standpoint, but it also helps co-locate residential next to a core commercial development, which I think satisfies the overall ideals of a mixed-use development, even if this itself is not more like a, let's say, Midtown Row, which has floor 1 commercial and floor 2 through 5 residential. The third point was some anecdotal comments that I've heard in favor of the proposal. I'm well guided, have been for years, around public dissent or support of an idea, and so I recognize that these need to be balanced with those that are against the proposal or on the fence of the proposal. But a few that I've heard from people who are living close by or working close by is that, quote, "This property is sat vacant and looking incredibly sad. The management team has assured me their goal is to have long-term residents. The subject property has zoning approval for the development of a hotel and timeshare complex. Many residents of the city of Williamsburg are of the view that the last thing the city needs is another hotel or more timeshare units. And a business owner said what you can expect them to say, which is, quote, "I believe this will increase our revenue. I support any property across the street that will benefit us." So I see in summation the macro view of needing more housing in Williamsburg, not seeing the demand right now for a commercial housing-focused unit such as a hotel or a timeshare unit going to be on the property anytime soon, given 5 decades of it being just a field. I also see that the city has put our seal on a document saying we need housing, and that need grows every single year. And I encourage people to read the Affordable Workforce Housing document to learn more about that. I'll lastly say that I want to be amenable to development, that is a need for the right type, and that we can't approve everything, but that I end up seeing this one developed by someone locally who's met for months now with local residents as being well thought out. It replaces an unused field. It satisfies our affordable housing needs on 2 different fronts. It puts a residential core near a commercial corridor, and it contributes for that reason to our mixed-use vibrancy goals of the EDGE district. So I would plan to support the project. Thank you.
Mr. Rogers. Anybody else have any more additional comments? I'd like to make a motion on the first PCR 22-024.
I think I can make a motion combining the two. Is that correct?
Okay.
So I move that City Council deny PCR 22-019 and PCR 22-024.
Second.
Comments? Okay.
Mr. Rogers?
Nay.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire? Aye.
Thank you. I appreciate the good conversation. Now takes us to reports, and first we have the monthly financial reports. Director Danman.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of City Council. I'll start the financial report with a brief review of the general fund. Our total revenues as of January 31st is 55% of the budget, and total expenditures in the general fund are 57% of the budget. We drew from surplus about $1.2 million. That is about 2.8 less than we drew last year after the draws are adjusted for some other fund transfers. Our real estate revenue is at 51% of the budget, which is where we expect to be until the second half collection is due on June 1st. Personal property is at 90.8% of the budget, and based on historical trends, I would anticipate that we would collect the rest of that between now and the end of the year, particularly as we begin procedures such as debt set-off, which targets state income tax returns to be reverted to localities where taxes are due, as well as the DMV stop process, which is stops the renewal of vehicles. Our business property personal property is at 98% of budget. Our meal taxes are at 54% of budget, an increase of 2.6% compared with last year, and that equates to about $117,000. Lodging taxes at 53% of the budget. However, it's currently performing at a 3% decrease compared to last year, and that equates to about $66,000. Overall, other general fund revenues are in line with budget, as are the expenditures. Moving on to the CIP fund, sales tax revenues at 46.5% of the budget, which is where we would expect to be given the 2-month lag that we have in that revenue stream. Sales tax has increased by 7.5% compared to last year, and that's about a $179,000 increase. In the tourism fund, the city's share of the Historic Triangle sales tax is at 51% of the budget. That's an increase of 13.6% compared to last year, or about $133,000. The $2 lodging tax is at 52% of the budget. However, it is performing at a 3.8% decrease compared with last year, and that equates to about $19,000. In the utility fund, water revenues at 43% of the budget, and the revenues are about 2.5% less than last year. We continue to monitor that. Sewer revenue is performing in line with budget and has increased about 20% compared to last year. Utility fund expenses are in line with budget. You will, however, note the sewage system expense has increased, and that's primarily a result of the sewer revenue that the city collects on behalf of the Hampton Roads Sanitation District, and then we pass that through as an expenditure in that department. That concludes my remarks. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Dameron. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Dameron. No questions.
None for me.
None for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Monthly departmental operating reports, Mr. Trivett, anything?
Well, so this month we were going to have Human Services come and speak, and but in light of the time we spent on the earlier item, we can forego that and carry it forward to next month.
Okay.
I doubt that Ms. Evans will object.
City manager's report.
None today. Well, let me make, I said this on Monday, but just let me make sure I've got the dates right. On February the 22nd at beginning at 4 o'clock, we're going to have an information session on the new police station, and it'll be in the fire station. So we've put some information out today, but just want to make sure everybody knows that's coming up.
Good, thank you. And that's open to the public?
That's right.
And
All right.
the hours, 4 to 6 is?
That's right, 4 to 6.
Anything from our attorney?
Not at this time.
All right, takes us now to open forum. I have some speakers card. First one I have is Ruth Kaiser, but I think she left. And then we have Shaeen Enes. Yep, there you are. I'm sure I mispronounced that, and I apologize, but welcome. If you just state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Cyan Nanez. I'd like to start off by apologizing. In my last time I spoke here, I believe I said this is, if I'm correct, this is taxation without representation. That's a lie. I can't speak for everyone, but it's taxation without representation for me. And I also said that your silence is our injury. And as I said prior, I cannot speak for anyone. But I thought I would come and explain why this council's silence on the issue in Palestine and not passing a ceasefire resolution is my personal injury. I'm a first-generation Mexican-American, honorably discharged Navy veteran, full-time student, and now activist here in Hampton Roads. And my mother passed when I was 1 year old. Growing up, I was able to really see and experience the trauma that's inflicted on a family, on individuals, on children when a family member is lost. When I was in high school, my ex-boyfriend died, and it was heavily rumored that it was a suicide. When I was in the service, when I was in A school, so I believe not even a full year in the Navy yet, one of my classmates killed herself in the same barracks that I was living in. I was stationed on the George Washington first, and this was after I was already transferred to the fort, but I'm sure, I can't speak for it, but it's been publicized how so many sailors on board the Washington committed suicide, and I believe, if I'm correct, it was 9. And when I went online to find their names, I couldn't even find a list of their names. I lost a very close friend to a domestic abusive relationship while in the Navy, and I lost a lieutenant to a domestic abusive relationship while serving. I have just been surrounded by so much death. I have been grieving since I was 1 year old, and I'm so horrified that people are being killed for, in my opinion, capitalist gain, for control over a region, for resources. And they're innocent civilians. They are unarmed civilians. And this council's response and decision was to remain silent when this is, in my opinion, clearly wrong. And you're taking, there are children losing their parents, there are parents losing their children. And I'm just going to finish with the last minutes I have trying to say the names of everyone. My mother's name is Maria Guadalupe Galvan. My ex-boyfriend was named Bishoy. My friend that was killed by her boyfriend is Elijah Rivera. The lieutenant that was killed by her boyfriend is Lieutenant Cortez, Ruth Cortez. And I do not know the name of the girl in the barracks. Like I mentioned earlier, I could not find the list of names of the shipmates I had on the Washington who killed themselves. And I know, I'm trying to be understanding, and I understand that politicians, council members have to consider and respect all sides of the story, but when is killing an unarmed person okay? Can anyone answer that for me? That is all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker's card I have is Louders Farley. Okay. Sophia. We'll try to pronounce your last name. But you can for us.
Sophia Badalamenti. First of all, I'd like to say good afternoon. I hope you all are not too tired. And I would like to echo the sentiments and arguments and supplications of my peer. I'm also here today to speak out in support of a ceasefire in Palestine and to urge you to do the same. I ask you to support the resolution affirming commitment, support for the congressional and worldwide calls for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza proposed by members of this community. As you may have heard, several city councils in the U.S. have already passed a resolution standing against genocide in Gaza to stand up for humanity in this moment of crisis, including San Francisco, Seattle, Chicago, Detroit, Providence, Atlanta, and Oakland. Currently, 48 municipals have already trailblazed this path for us. Colonial Williamsburg is I consider it the historic heart of pride and revolution in this country, and I ask you to uphold this legacy by taking action now. The federal government continues to ignore the mass protests and sentiments of the majority of the population in the U.S., and instead sends billions of our tax dollars to fund a genocide. Over 25,000 Palestinians have already been killed, 67% of which are women and children. Hundreds of thousands more are lost from the rubble, suffering debilitating injuries and being denied medical care, food, water, sanitation, and other basic human needs. Both anti-Semitic and Islamophobic hate crimes are increasing exponentially around the country, especially on college campuses such as William & Mary, which William & Mary students and staff compose, I think, over 60% of the population here in Williamsburg. If not for the people in Israel and Palestine, please consider passing this resolution to protect the freedom and safety of your own community. This nation professes to operate under values like the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, to assure us that we as citizens have a voice. By not using these rights, by remaining inactive spectators of the systematic destruction of the Palestinian people, we are complicit in these crimes. Today, I have listened in admiration of the members of this community who have spoken with such tenacity in defense of Williamsburg. And I ask you to extend the same care for the welfare of people who have suffered at our government's hands. We call upon the City of Williamsburg to take a firm stance for humanity and to continue to keep our city and college a safe place for all its constituents. Thank you for your time and energy.
Thank you so much. Next speaker's card I have is Thomas Heffel. Thomas, are you here? Thomas. Karen Sperlitz.
Hello, my name is Karen Sperling. I am also here to ask that the council signs on to the pre-written, pre-drafted resolution affirming commitment and support for congressional and worldwide calls for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. You should have access to this already. If you do not, please respond to one of my many emails, and I would be really happy to work with you and to make sure that this resolution is something that is as easy and as plausible for you to pass as possible. So your first reaction to hearing so many people call that you call for a ceasefire might be to say that this is an international, a broad issue that would be better left to the hands of the federal government or someone else. It doesn't affect us. We're just a little town. Come on. I mean, they're so far away. What are we going to do here in Williamsburg? But it does affect us. Then the federal government has not been listening to our people. Over 48 cities have already made a claim to stand up for the people of the United States when the federal government refuses again and again to listen to the people. On November 25th, 3 Palestinian students of Brown University were shot, injured, and paralyzed. On January 20th, many students of Columbia University were assaulted with skunk, which is not the cartoon cloud out of an actual skunk animal, but a military chemical weapon used in warfare that was used on students, on college students. Many hate crimes against Jewish people, against Arab people, against Muslim people, against everyone have resulted from the violence that is happening, that is perpetrated by Israel in Palestine. And it is spreading most abundantly on college campuses, where we students are, and where a huge percentage of your population lies. It is of paramount importance that our local government takes a stance to stop this violence before it reaches our campus, before our students get hurt. We need to call for a ceasefire and take a definitive stance for peace as a way to say that you stand with the students, that you will not support these hateful acts of violence that are perpetrated again and again and again without any repercussion. Please stop the violence from happening on our campuses and protect your students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Takes us to unfinished business. I don't believe we have any on the agenda. To new business, we have several. First is consideration and action regarding the authorization of AE task order for Ironbound Road Phase 2 and 3 field work. Mr. Small.
Mayor, members of council, before you today is consideration of authorizing a field work task order on our annual A&E contract to commence the start of the Ironbound Road Phase 2 and 3 project. Quite a few years ago, we received smart scale funding for both phases, which was kind of a surprise at the time. And so what we've asked VDOT to do is combine these two projects into one. And what we will do is we're proposing to do this as a design build. And so the first phase of doing design build with VDOT is you have to prepare the design build bridging documents. And that starts with field work, so surveying, geotechnical engineering, finding out where all the underground utilities are along the corridor, and then preparing the documents that would start to prepare that, identify that scope of work and the impact on the area. So the project, right now, the concept for the project was created back in 2011, and this was to widen to a minimum 36-foot three section. We're currently 2 lanes through this our section of Ironbound Road, and this would have 1 lane in each direction and what we call a twiddle, which is a 2-way left turn lane. Also included would be a 10-foot shared use path on the north side and a 5-foot wide sidewalk on the south side, which currently has about a 4-foot sidewalk in that area, 3 to 4. It would also improve the signals at Traburn Drive and tie those in and connect them up with Long Hill Road, and also provide a wide right turn lane at Richmond Road and improve that signal as well. JMT is one of our annual contractors, and they have been selected to perform the work on this project. And our first phase of field work would be a lump sum contract not to exceed $143,000 and $143,200. And so at this time, any contract, as you know, over $100,000 requires city council approval, and that's why we're here today. Any questions?
Aaron, I'm assuming the field work will determine if there's any property that has to be acquired?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where we start to determine where the property impacts. Our first thing we're gonna do is actually go talk to or send out notice to the residents that we're gonna be out in the field. So they'll see flags going up and this kind, the marks going out. And they'll also work at that time, at the end of all of this, our next phase of work will actually involve the public hearing type phase, where we want to hold a public information meeting about the project and what's being proposed. And so all of that will happen in our next phase of work after the field work.
Thank you.
No questions, you just answered it, thank you.
Thank you. And from your experience, I'm sure we've done this many times before, and you have, is this price considered fair and reasonable for the work that's called for?
Yes, we actually, a lot of these, the unit prices that we set up, they're actually based on a total, it's through the whole federal process.
Okay.
And so what we do is we actually they have to be audited for the rates they charge. And they're limited on their overhead rate. And so what we use is those established rates in our annual contract.
And in this process, would it be determined that the plan that came up in 2011, which seems a long time, is still the best plan? Or could they make tweaks, or maybe we need to vary it a little bit based on traffic trends now, pedestrians?
There will be some validation of that, and then what we'll do is we'll have to determine if the scope is still valid. If it is not, and say we need a 4-lane road through there, I don't think that's possible. But if that were to come out, then what we would do is we would say, okay, here's why, and then we would go back to our funding partners and see what we could do about finding additional funds to deal with that. Small tweaks, not so much, as long as there's depends on the cost implications.
And since I'm not real good in my directions, I take it that the north sidewalk that you referenced, that's the one that parallels like Dillard Field and
Correct. It'd be
Plumeri
on the
Park.
Plumeri Park side and the
Okay.
Dillard Field side.
Because I have heard that they have additions planned for those areas to supplement them and increase usage. So
That's correct.
A wider multi-use path would be very fitting for public safety and
Right, and if you remember when we did the widening of the sidewalk on Long Hill Road, one of the things we talked about was the circular kind of track walkway
Yep.
of Long Hill Road up to the James City County Rec Center, down Depew Drive, and then coming along Ironbound. This is the missing link section that's just has the narrow concrete sidewalk.
good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smalls. No additional questions.
Good, thank you.
Are we ready
Okay, ready to vote?
to go? So I move that City Council authorize the city manager to execute a purchase agreement with JMT for the fieldwork task order on Ironbound Road Phases 2 and 3 for a lump sum not to exceed $143,200.
Second.
Ms. McKay?
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay, item B is consideration and action regarding the bids for Port Ann outfall stabilization and stream restoration. Mr. Small.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you today is we've received bids on our Port Ann outfall stabilization stream restoration project. We received 4 bids. We had one low bidder, CTN Enterprises. They had the low bid of $340,616. This is a cooperative project with the Port Ann Owners Association. They're actually funding the local match for the project. And the city has helped them apply for and receive a grant from DEQ, from the Stormwater Local Assistance Fund. And so there's actually no city funds being outlaid for this project. But we're kind of helping out the Homeowners Association get us through. And in exchange for that, we actually get to use this as part of our TMDL action plan credits for protection of the Chesapeake Bay. The city, Port Ann, bids did come in over the budget. Port Ann has already agreed they will forward their half up front for that, and so we're ready to move forward, and so the funds are available. And they've also been budgeted in the CIP on both the revenue side and the expense side. This work will begin in March and take about 6 months.
Well, yeah, first, thank you, Aaron, and to all the city staff that worked with the Port Ann Homeowners Association to work on a problem that really is their problem, but in order to get, to go through that process to help them get the grant funding, I think is a testament to our city and working with our neighbors to make sure that we can help where we can. So I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, just, it's great opportunity to work together to solve an issue.
I have a question. What are TMDL credits? What does that mean, TMDL?
Total maximum daily load.
Okay.
What that is that is
Making sure
our
I wasn't supposed to
pollution
know what that
diet. And in the case of the Chesapeake Bay, they've limited how much nutrients can go into the bay, as well as sediment. And what this does is we are allocated a certain amount that the city of Williamsburg is allowed to put into the bay as part of everybody's load. And this enables us to meet those goals for reduction of those.
Great, thank you.
Pollutants.
Thank you. I would say this is a win-win on both sides, and again, appreciate your help getting grants. You always seem to know where to get some money, so that's always good. Very well appreciated.
Yeah, I agree. Commendations for the SLAF grant helping fund this, Aaron.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
So I move that City Council award the bid for Port Ann outfall stabilization and stream restoration and authorize the city manager to execute a contract with CTN Enterprises, Inc. for $340,616 based on unit prices.
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay, we'll carry on with the Aaron Small Show and go to item D, consideration and action regarding the bids for the FY24 citywide stop bars, crosswalk, and restriping.
I think we're
Did I skip one?
capital landing.
It's okay, I can back up.
Then back up, consideration and action regarding the bids for Capitol Landing Road water system improvements. I was trying to get-
This, another project out on our Capitol Landing Road corridor, which is kind of the overall project. This is the water main installation and upgrade. The existing water main that serves this area is really only a 6-inch line. It was put in right after the 1964 annexation. And it runs all the way up to Merrimack Trail and extends out and around. Back then, that was all we really needed. However, the area with the growth and everything else that's going on out there, and then additional fire protection rules, it requires an upgrade along that corridor. So we've proposed putting in a 3,180 linear feet of 12-inch ductile iron water main, and we'll take the existing older main out of service, which has now reached the end of its life. Matter of fact, we just actually had a water leak out in that area just 2 weeks ago that had to be repaired. This will help improve that circulation by providing that additional water flow and really improve the fire protection in the area. We received 3 bids on the project, as well as one other response of a no bid. Low bidder was J. Sanders Construction Company for $1,964,710. That is a very reasonable bid. Believe it or not, this is very expensive installation for pipe. So the funds, J. Sanders, I've been working with them for almost my entire career, back into the 90s. So they're very familiar to me on this type of work. Funds are included in the fiscal year 24 CIP under Capitol Landing Road corridor, and this work will start as soon as we can get the pre-bid scheduled, or pre-construction meeting scheduled, and then hopefully get started in March and finish up by November of 2024.
And will this water main go under the street or?
This will go right in, if you're currently traveling down Capitol Landing Road, it'll be in the right lane, about 3-4 feet off of the edge of the curb. So where it'll end up when we're all done is it'll be under the bike lane.
I'm certainly glad that we're doing this today and not in 3 years after the bike lane's been constructed.
Exactly.
Okay, is there any questions from?
So I'm assuming this will just take during construction, it'll consume one lane of traffic?
Correct. Yes, and they'll have one lane open all the time. Plus, we'll be able to, only stop traffic for the driveways and accesses as little as we can to provide notice to those folks. And then eventually, we'll also have to switch the water over after the new main is installed and tested. And so there'll be some minor inconveniences for the residents and business owners along the route.
Question, thank you.
So just one question, where it matches up at sort of both ends, are those water lines already the 12-inch ones?
We have a 12-inch water line on Bypass Road, and that actually runs down Bypass until it connects up with our big 18-inch main coming out of the water plant. We do not have, we have a smaller line running down Merrimack Trail, but eventually that would also be extended. It does loop back to the lines, the 12-inch line on 2nd Street.
Okay.
Aaron, could you describe, I see 3 bids, the lowest was about 2 million, where the other 2 bids fell?
Just above 2 million.
They were very close by.
Yeah, they were pretty close.
Okay, all right, thank you.
One was almost 3.
There's no other conversation. Would somebody like to make a motion?
So I move that City Council award the bid for Capitol Landing Road water system improvements and authorize the city manager to execute a contract with J. Sanders Construction Company for $1,964,710 based on unit prices.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay, so now we can do D, consideration and action regarding the bids for the FY24 citywide stop bars, crosswalks, and restriping.
Right, this is actually coming out of what shows up in the CIP as our repaving, our street maintenance budget. So this is our fiscal year. This year, what we propose to do, instead of, over the summer, typically we would send streets crews out and they'd repaint all the crosswalks using traffic paint, because there'd been poor experience using thermoplastic materials on crosswalks. When you get hit with a snowplow, it would peel them up and they just look ugly and it just wouldn't work real well. They were also very slick when they got wet. So what we're proposing now, though, is with the newer technology of liquid applied thermoplastics and the glass beads that can be embedded for the traction, as well as the reflectivity, we're proposing to replace all of the painted crosswalks with this thermoplastic material. This would also include the stop bars, and this is a very common method of striping used through almost everywhere else So this would be all the crosswalks, all the stop bars throughout the city. And they would start work as soon as we can effectively get out there on the weather. It requires 50 degrees and rising temperature of the paving in order for us to apply this material. We received 2 bids over the course of 2 bid lettings on this. So we've actually advertised this and received bids twice. Each time we only received 1 bid. The second time we did receive at least 1 response where they were unable to bid. The low bid in this case was Acme Parking Lot Striping. They're out of Northern Virginia area, but they're also very reputable for doing this kind of work. And the price was much more advantageous the second time we bid this. So it's within our budget at $176,499.50. And that work will occur again as weather the permits with 50 degrees and rising temperatures in the spring.
So Aaron, will the contractor come and just begin work and work through town?
Yes.
Or would
Yeah, we're going to propose that he actually start, usually where we want them to start is hitting those crosswalks that are most used, which are going to be the ones on Richmond Road, right around William and Mary, Jamestown Road, right around William and Mary, and then the ones in the historic district, like on Francis Street, so that we make sure that those are the ones that get hit first. We also have a few crosswalks on like Long Hill Road, coming over from the Skipwith neighborhood. Those are used by a lot of the children that walk to school. And so we want to make sure that those are the ones that we focus on.
How long do you think this entire process would take, weather permitting?
This is actually the nice thing. It used to take us 2 to 3 months during the summertime because at night the temperatures are lower. You've got higher humidity at night. And so the paint that we would used to use would take forever to dry. It used to take 30, 40 minutes for the paint to dry enough where it could be driven on. Thermoplastic materials dries in about 30 seconds. So once it goes down at about 400 degrees. It tends to melt into the asphalt, so it helps really adhere it well. And then it dries almost immediately.
Will they be working at night or will they work through?
They will be doing this during the day too. So we'll just have to, we might close a lane during the, for a few minutes or, maybe an hour during the day, and they'll try to perform most of the work during the day. So there's also not as much disruption at night and noise.
In terms of doing the area around Jamestown Road, Richmond Road, we wouldn't likely start there until the students aren't there crossing.
Early mornings are ideal. Early mornings, and we wait until off the hour when they're in class. So it's really a matter of just timing it at the right times.
Vice
Yeah,
Mayor?
no questions. Thanks, Aaron.
I just want to say this is really cool. I have a little junior engineer at home, and I'm sure it's going to be fascinating to how do they do this? Like, what does this look like? And you don't have to tell me. I want to be
More
surprised.
than welcome to come
Yeah.
out, and we'll explain the process.
Absolutely, that sounds I mean, I've read about this in other towns doing this, and I think that, this is absolutely what we should be doing, and, I really thank you for taking this on.
Yes, thank you. I just have 2 quick questions. So this is applied directly onto the old paint. You don't have to worry about
Correct.
doing any preparation there. And then, oh shoot, I forgot my second question, but anyway.
One other thing that was being added on this, we do have a few streets that are also included in this contract where the paint striping is faded over time, and those are being refreshed as part of this. For instance, on Battery Boulevard between the Readout Roundabout and Village Green was a block that was missed, and the stripes are almost completely gone in that area.
So, good, exciting. Look forward to it.
Rogers?
Yeah, this is interesting development, so no additional questions, Mr. Small. Thanks for bringing it to us.
Thank you.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion?
So I move that City Council award the bid and authorize the city manager to execute a contract for the FY24 citywide stop bars, crosswalks, and restriping to Acme Parking Lot Striping, Inc. for $176,499.50.
Second?
Ms. McKay?
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay, next is consideration and action regarding the purchase of a Model TL3 base loader knuckle boom truck. Mr. Reed, welcome.
Oh, will, okay. Good afternoon. That was gonna be a video, and I'm not sure how to, need IT support. Appreciate it. In March 2022, council authorized $200,000 in ARPA funds to be used for the purchase of a knuckle boom truck to be used by Public Works for debris collection and disposal. Public Works staff has found the equipment meets our needs and specifications at a dealer in Mechanicsville, Virginia, and we are using cooperative procurement contract. The vehicle will be available for delivery this month, and we were able to negotiate the purchase price to fall within the city's budget. The price also includes training for city public works staff on the equipment, and what you're seeing there is a demo of what we're actually purchasing. The boom can extend 20 feet and comes with a 5-foot clamshell with dump bed. It can pick up anywhere between 3,000 and 7,000 pounds, depending on how close the material is to the truck. And with council approval, we would like to move forward with the purchase of the vehicle. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Questions?
Yeah, I mean, this is something we supported some time ago, so happy to see be able to get it in a timely manner.
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you for the negotiating to get it within the city's budget, including that training on how to use it. So really appreciate it. I think a lot of people are going to be looking forward to this, so thanks.
I concur. No questions.
I remember at the ARPA retreat, one Public Works employee being so adamant that we needed this that I'm surprised former Planning Director Dan Clayton's not here to celebrate this win. But yeah, Jack, thank you for negotiating price within budget. Good luck.
Thanks. You know, with any new tool comes with a whole lot more work, so now you got more work to do, right?
That's right.
Is there a motion to approve?
Can become a toy. I move that City Council authorize the city manager to execute a purchase order for a TL3 Lightning Loader Knuckle Boom Truck through the Sourcewell Cooperative Procurement Contract for $200,000.
Second.
Ms. McKay?
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay, next is consideration and action regarding proposed ordinance 24-01 to amend and restate Division 3 of Article 2, Chapter 5, of the waiving building permit fees for affordable housing projects. Ms. Shelton.
So last year, we had a nonprofit that was doing some work that would qualify as affordable housing work, and the city code doesn't provide an avenue for the staff to waive building permit fees for those types of projects. But the state code allows us to add that to the city code, and so this ordinance does that. It has to be done by ordinance of council. It allows council to specify that this be for a nonprofit. We have a couple of nonprofits in the community that do these types of projects in the city that could potentially take advantage of this. It also allows the city to specify the definition of affordable housing. And so looking at how city councils define that, in past discussions, it's been 80% of the median income for our area, not spending more than 30% of income on housing. So roughly my back of the envelope math is something less than $300,000. So you can sort of see the neighborhoods where that would be targeted toward. So they would have to show that they're a nonprofit, and they would have to show that they're working on a project that involves affordable housing. And if they show those two things to the planning department in their application, they would get their building permit fees waived.
Comments or questions?
Just great way to support those projects.
Hopefully get a few more of them.
Yeah.
I agree. Thanks.
Shouldn't be a substantial loss of revenue to the city.
These are generally, I think, pretty small projects. They're usually rehabilitative projects. And I think it's a way to help without a substantial hit to the revenue.
I agree, and that would be my observation. And we're not talking about a lot of money to the city, but in order for people and organizations to bring forward projects, the little bit of permit fee helps that project. So I would support that as well. Somebody like to make a motion?
So I move that City Council approve proposed ordinance 24-01.
Second.
Okay, would you call the roll?
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay, next is consideration and appointment to boards and commissions members.
So I move that City Council appoint Natalie Miller Moore to the Economic Development Authority for an unexpired term ending June 30, 2025, and Olivia Saylor to the Economic Development Authority for a term ending June 30, 2027.
Second.
Ms. McKay?
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
That concludes new business. We have some matters for closed session.
We do. I move to go into closed session pursuant to Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia for the purpose of discussing the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds and discussion of the terms or scope of such contract, where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body per subparagraph 29 regarding schools.
Second.
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay. So that concludes we're going to go now into closed session, and when we come back, we'll adjourn the meeting and take it from there. So we are in closed session.
I move to approve the certification of a closed session pursuant to Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia.
Second?
Ms. McKay?
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Any other business? Is there a
I
motion
move-
to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. McKay?
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Thank you, we're adjourned.